G'day guys, welcome to Talking About Sports with Roman. So this afternoon we're discussing a bit of a recap of the round 1 fixtures, a small insight into the round 2 fixtures, and to top it up with the selections that the Warriors have picked for this week's game against Manly. So yeah, to kick off, obviously the Raiders-Warriors game was not something to remember if you're a Warriors fan. But fantastic performance across the field for the Raiders. They just played fantastic. Xavier Savage, the combinations in the backs, the forwards, they had all the momentum throughout the whole game and basically shut down the Warriors for the whole game. Basically took the end of the first and the second half for the Warriors to get a try each in the first and second half. But yeah, if they're going to be, having the same squad like they are against Manly, their halves combination has to work in sync. Definitely against Daly Cherry Evans and Luke Brooks, as well as Tommy in the back line. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens this week against Manly at Mount Smart Stadium. But yeah, moving on. The other game of the Las Vegas venture was between the Penrith Panthers and the Cronulla Sharks. Now, this was a game that actually went down to the wire. Obviously, the Panthers had led the game most of the game, but the Sharks came back in the second half and were very close to winning the game, but also tying it up and taking it into golden point. But yeah, both sides definitely have the leadership and caliber there to make the 8. Definitely the Panthers will be looking to go 5 straight in the premierships. They've, defending champions. I personally thought that they would struggle the first game of the season, like anything, in team sports. Usually the team that wins the grand final the year before, takes a few games to get settled into the new season, but just looks like the Panthers are on another mission, and they're on a mission to basically make the top 4, so to get back themselves in the finals. We'll see what happens in the later stages of the season. But yeah, Cronulla Sharks look really good. They've also got, Adam Fanua-Blake, who's, left the Warriors, so he's going to be really good for the Sharks. Nico Hines had a great game with the Sharks, and the backs look really good for the Sharks. So we'll see what happens there in terms of more stuff to come in the later stages of the competition. The game that I actually was quite interested in was the Roosters-Broncos game. Only reason being is that the Warriors face the Roosters in next week, so a couple of weeks from the round 1, but also on the basis that Broncos look really good. And Broncos, struggle to. The Broncos didn't make the 8 last season. The season before, they were they got to the grand final against Penrith, but blew it. And in terms of that, they look really good. Michael Maguire's come into the side, and he's installed some, fire in terms of the team, and obviously some media scrutiny with Ezra Mam still going on. But personally, I think the Broncos look like a side that's going to be, the top 2 this season, based on that performance against the Roosters. And I mean, the Roosters obviously have a lot of injuries out. They also have a lot of players that have left. They also just look like a side that is missing in leadership and captaincy at the moment. And even though James Tedesco is still in the side, I personally feel that he is, he's past his prime. Still has, great moments in terms of, a couple of games in the season. Still, good for Origin, but in terms of, NRL throughout the whole season, be interesting to see that if he can keep up with the body and the rate of the competition this season. So, be interesting to see at the later stages of the season if the Roosters do make the 8 or if they, get higher than what they currently are at the moment. But yeah, Broncos look really good. Reece Walsh, Lightning, Adam Reynolds, it's going to be important for the captaincy there for him to stay injury-free this season. But yeah, Broncos look really good to start the season, and especially playing away from home. I think they also got another game away from home this coming week. So yeah, they'll be looking to bank the easy 4 points to start this season. Moving on, the Tigers Knights game. I've got a soft spot for the Tigers, not because one of my best mates loves the Tigers, just because they've been shit for quite some time. Their management, leadership, coaching staff, everything, players performing. Bit like the Warriors, although the Tigers have won titles in the past, the Warriors have won jack shit. So in terms of that. You can say the Tigers are probably a far better franchise team club than the Warriors will ever be at the moment. So, yeah, even though they're going through their stuff at the moment, I still feel the Tigers are on the rise, and they looked the odds at home in Campbellton against the Knights, but just fell short in the end. And I think that was also due to a few kicking performances, forwards all the way through, but my friend will know a bit more than me in terms of what's happening with the Tigers. But I can say Luai looks really good with the side. And Galvin, if he can get running. And one thing I did actually notice about the Tigers in that game was their ruck speed. They're actually quick off the ball. And so if they keep that up throughout the game and throughout the season, they could actually be a threat for a lot of teams. I just felt really unfortunate for them. And personally, they did give the game away in a way. So, yeah. Knights look really good. Yeah, obviously they've got the potential with Dylan Brown coming on next season. But yeah, Newcastle, I've always wondered about them. I've liked them as a team personally, but the way they do their management and style things and surround themselves by a franchise player. Um, yeah, personally, I feel that Kalen Ponga, he's got to have a breakout season this year, personally, for the Knights. So we'll see what happens in terms of that for there. But yeah, it's still early days, and they've also got another matchup against each other back in Newcastle in the later stages of the competition. So we'll see if the Tigers can get up on that, or if the Knights can get 2-0 against the Tigers. Well, Wayne Bennett's finally back with South Sydney. He had a stint with the Broncos, had a stint with the Dolphins, and now he's back with South Sydney. I personally feel that this is where he belongs. This particular club, he's just been, he knows the ins and outs of the culture of South Sydney Rabbitohs. I felt like he was a little lost at the Redcliffe Dolphins, personally, even though he got the Dolphins to a period of the inaugural where he was able to get the Dolphins their foot on their stamp on the mark in the NRL. I personally felt that in terms of that he was just a little lost with the Dolphins. But yeah, great match with the Rabbitohs, close one there, only 2 points in it. They had to relocate due to the flood in Queensland. But yeah, South Sydney actually looked really good, and I know they were missing Cody Nikorima, and I'm pretty sure Katoa was missing as well. Oh no, he was playing actually. Sorry, I know they were missing a couple of players for the Dolphins, but yeah, the Rabbitohs were also missing a few players themselves, and so yeah, they looked actually really good under Wayne Bennett's leadership, and so it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next coming rounds for the Rabbitohs, if they make the 8 or if they slip down to 10th, 11th. I think my prediction for them was roughly between 10th and 14th. So we'll see if the odds change for that. Moving on to the next game. Saturday night, I put on my St. George Illawarra Dragons shorts to support my mate Scrag. Giving you a shout out here, and that I'm giving you a shout out for the Tigers. You would have picked up that subtle message, anyways. But yeah, with St. George Illawarra Dragons and the Bulldogs, home game for the Dragons. They blew it at the end, personally. Bulldogs just looked fantastic all the way through. Yeah, it's going to be interesting with the Bulldogs. They're going to be a top 4, top 8 side. Still early days. I mean, Gus Gold, has said it. He's come out saying that, it's our year this year. I mean, I think most sides actually say that, but with the Bulldogs, Canterbury, yeah, this was actually a game in the making, and it came down to the last sort of 15 minutes for the Bulldogs, where they yeah, well, Bulldogs were actually leading most of the game, and the Dragons basically were playing catch up most of the game. But yeah, you look at that, their their kicker Matt Burton, had a fantastic game. I've always rated him. But something about the Bulldogs that I've also just noticed recently is that they play pretty well under pressure. And, being a Warriors fan, we faced them at the later stages of last season. And one thing that being a Warriors fan against the Bulldogs is that I personally feel that they are one of our bogey teams for the Warriors. In terms of that, it's always generally quite close, or it either goes to golden point or there's only 4 points in it. So, on the basis of this game, Matty Burton had a fantastic game from the sideline in terms of the kicking duties. He also, set up Marcelo Montoya, had a fantastic game for the Bulldogs, ex-Warrior player, wing. I feel like the Warriors are potentially missing him in that wing spot. But yeah, this was definitely my Saturday night, and I actually really enjoyed the good game of rugby league between the two sides. Right, so if we go into the last two games, personally, my favourite game of the round that I actually watched was between Manly and the Cowboys. I always like to watch the games, the teams that play. That the Warriors are going to be playing next week or the game after. It just gives me more an insight into what we actually are going to be facing up with. So in terms of that, yeah, the Sea Eagles just thrashed the Cowboys. They basically were on the pump throughout the whole game, dominated in all areas, and could told Payton be the first coach to get sacked in the NRL? I don't know, but look at the Eels. They also got smoked by Melbourne Storm, completely dicked. And there's probably a lot of media scrutiny with Dylan Brown, etc., and all that. But yeah, Melbourne just look the goods. They look like they're hungry for a premiership this season, and I don't know if it's Craig Bellamy's last season or not, but it looks like he wants to go out with a bang. And so if it's Melbourne's year this year, they're going to go out on all firing cylinders and ensure that they win the minor premiership to give them that trajectory into the finals, into the prelim finals, then straight to the finals, based on where they come this year in the standings. But yeah, if I had to say a match that I actually really if I had to say the match of the round for round one, I would personally say that this round, apart from the Panthers and the Sharks round and the Roosters Broncos round, and potentially the Warriors and the Raiders game, yeah, it's and the Storm Eels game. I would definitely say the game of the round was Panthers Sharks, followed by the Roosters Broncos, with the other games potentially being wooden spoon contenders, apart from the Melbourne Storm game. So yeah, in terms of that round one, it's all done and dusted. You know who's in the top 8 now and who's in the bottom 9 at the end of round one. Yes, the ladder's going to open up in the next week or two, but we'll see what happens in terms of that. And my next video will be on the Warriors selections for round 2 against the Manly Sea Eagles at Mount Smart Stadium. Kia ora. Thanks.